flying. Fuck, man.
I'm so
Why
sorry.
would you do
Fuck,
that?
they're like red.
Yeah, because you fucking slapped me in the face.
Last thing before we wrap is A Real Pain, a movie we both saw. A movie that will probably come up again as we reach the end of the year, Listomania, best ofs, and then the awards race. Because I think you are a huge fan of this movie.
I absolutely love this movie. This is one of my favorites of the year. We saw this together a couple weeks ago now, and honestly, this movie has sat with me in this like really, really beautiful way, in a way that I was deeply moved in the theaters whenever we saw it together, and it has only continued to grow in my estimation for what Jesse Eisenberg is trying to say.
It's directed, written, starring, and directed by Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah.
Also with Kieran Culkin.
Yeah, co-starring Kieran Culkin, who's the favorite right now to win Best Supporting Actor.
He's the lead of the movie, but that's
he is
that's
a lead.
fine.
It's a fake Best Supporting Actor. But in the Best Supporting Actor, like in that category, it's my favorite supporting actor that anybody has given this year. I think that he is unreal good. In this portrait of two brothers who, following the death of their two cousins, who, following the death of their grandmother, are wanting to go on this journey to discover a little bit about their family history, about their past, specifically looking through Poland, to go and look at some concentration camps, look at places where she grew up, where she lived her life, and kind of re-experience what the Jewish people went through and what her grandmother specifically went through. So obviously, like, that has a lot of heft to the story on its own. But really where the movie is at its most interesting is whenever it is focused on these two cousins, who in a lot of ways are really closer than most brothers are, most siblings are. They have this deep relationship, this deep history with each other, where you can tell that they meant so much with each other. They spent so much time with each other, growing up with each other.
Well, you can tell they used to be close.
And that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
They both are carrying this history with them, but also you aren't seeing them when they're like out at night, spending all days and everything together. Like, it's very clear that these are two characters that, despite their relationship and growing up together, have gone in very different life paths. And one, you would say, is doing the traditionally successful thing of having a wife and having a child and a successful job. And the other one is kind of lost. He's a lost spirit. He's just wandering around aimlessly, trying to find somewhere that he belongs, somewhere that he feels safe. I am speaking of the Kieran Culkin character, but what makes his character so electric and not just like a sad oaf of a character is that he has this kinetic energy, this ability to connect with anybody and anytime and say whatever he wants, and people just love him. Everybody just wants to flock to him and love him, and yet he can't really find a way to love himself and find a place of true belonging. And that's where this movie is really made.
So you were much higher on this movie than I was when we left the theater. My biggest takeaway fresh out of the theater was that I wanted more. I thought the movie was so good that I felt like I could have watched 10, 15, 20 minutes more. And I felt like I was kind of not robbed, but like deprived a little bit of like the fullest potential. Like, there was more juice in the fruit to squeeze out of there. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, Jesse did a great job, but he didn't do as good as I thought he could have, because the movie was so good. And I felt like there's more meat left on the bone. But after really sitting with it and thinking about it, it's a movie that really, it settles well in the mind after a while. And whatever reservations I had about it, I may have on a rewatch again, but I'm not really clinging on to them too much. I'm really thinking about all the things the movie did well, particularly how the movie chooses to depict the nature of the Kieran Culkin character to the people around him, and his unpredictability, his volatility, and just the idea of like someone being so, I guess, kind of abrasive and intense in this setting. Your wife Gaia was sitting in between us in the screening, and I could feel her like squirming in her seat every time this Kieran guy is doing anything, because we all know at least a guy like this who is like, he pushes the social situation a little bit further than you're supposed to. He says things or does things or behaves in ways that like aren't necessarily offensive, but are just outside some of the established norms of any number of social scenarios. And that creates an incredibly uncomfortable movie watching experience, to have to sit with that. And the way it's deployed in the story, I think it's so well done, because I think a lesser director would simplify it and build an entire story around how this guy sucks, or like how everyone is like sick of him, or how, you know, I can't stand him. And you think the movie is going to go there. Every single time it happens, every scene where that tension builds up, you're just ready for it to go there, because I feel like we've seen a bunch of movies that do that. I feel like there's countless examples of characters that that are like that. You know, a Todd Phillips staple, Zach Galifianakis in the Hangover films.
There you go.
You know, that's the easy route. That's not what this movie is doing. It's actually at every opportunity pulling back and showing you like, actually, this guy's really smart, and everything he's saying has a really good point. And maybe he's saying it in a way that maybe he shouldn't, because it's like a little bit too much, but he's coming from a very good place, and he has a heart. Like, that's kind of the whole point of the movie, is that this guy, he's trying to find himself, and in finding himself, you're realizing not just how wounded he is, but how beautiful and emotional he is on the inside. And that's what the Jesse Eisenberg character is gravitating towards, is that beautiful, lovable center. And I think that in many ways, this movie is very, or I should say the Kieran performance is very different from the Succession performance from, oh my God, Roman Roy. There's a lot of overlap. Obviously, a lot of the energy is similar. But after watching the movie, I feel like I saw a different guy. You know, I didn't see Roman Roy again. So I would be very happy with a nomination. I would be very happy with a win. I think he'd be very well deserved. I hope that it's not, people aren't voting for Succession again. No, I hope that's not what this is.
I don't think that is the case, because I really think, like, honestly, this is right there with a movie like Nora, a couple other ones that are on my list here of like my favorite screenplays of the year. Like, I think that the way that this movie depicts characters, it's doing exactly what you're talking about, where everything is more complicated than what it is in a traditional movie, because that's life. The real people that you are around, they will do like unsavory things or put in uncomfortable situations, but maybe they do have a magnetism to them. Maybe you do just have history with them and you still love them. Also, there might be some people who are very turned away from it. Like, not everybody is just all in on Benji's deal. Like, there's on this tour group together with a bunch of other people, and a lot of people are gravitating towards him. And there's some people, like there's the old man who's just like, nope, I'm good on that. I don't want anything to do with that.
Or the guide, the friction with the tour guide. It's done. It's
really well executed. And I think that's one thing with this movie, is that, and I definitely do understand the criticism. I feel it a little bit where it's like, I wanted more of this movie, but where I have had a lot of enjoyment since this movie has come out is talking about a lot of the interpretation, because so much of this is very carefully it's very carefully and very deliberate in the way that it doles out information to you. We are in the Jesse Eisenberg character, who he is much more of a reserved guy. So because of that, you have more of a restricted POV in what exactly is going on. Does Kieran Culkin have like some kind of like romantic tension flair with Jennifer Grey's Marcia character? Or is that like this like mother, this maternal character for him? Or are they bonding over two people who have both lost somebody? Because that's another aspect. Like there's so much depth and so many layers to everything that's happening and to all these characters that are in this story. That's, I think, make it deeply profound. And I also just got to give kudos to Jesse Eisenberg as a filmmaker, because I didn't think that he had it in him whenever it comes to like directing chops. I've never seen When He Finished Saving the World. It came out a couple years ago.
It didn't get the best reviews. I think it premiered at Sundance, which I think this film also did.
Yeah, but I know it's the Finn Wolfhard one. Yeah, Finn Wolfhard, Julianne Moore one. Never saw that one, but he definitely has the eye, man. There is particularly a couple of sequences in the movie where they go to I can't remember the name of the town, but they go to what was once a thriving, affluent Polish town center that was basically like the Polish Broadway, where they say, like, don't think about the horrors that you're going to see at the concentration camp, because there's a concentration camp that is like
next door,
a mile, 2 miles from city center. But like, think about like what is there before, and the way the camera will hold on these shots, and just think of like, you'll hear the voice of the tour guide be like, picture a synagogue, picture a thriving bookstore on a Saturday morning. A market. Like, and it's, you aren't necessarily seeing things, but the camera holds for just long enough, and the way that the camera is positioned, that it leaves enough time for you as the audience to visualize that.
Yeah.
Another thing is whenever they actually do go to the concentration camp, seeing the shots, that is the scene of the movie is heavy, man. It is a lot. And it's one of those things that I think in the wrong hands, it can feel a little bit belaborious. Like it can feel like a little bit overbearing, especially because this movie is pretty light at a lot of aspects. So it's like, oh, now we're making a big turn here, but it feels in conversation with the rest of the movie, because at the end of the movie, at the end of the day, this is a movie that is about like looking backwards, whether it is in a wider point of view about like your own family history and trying to discover who you are by looking at your family history, or looking at who you are as a person today by looking at who you used to be.
But it's also, I think it is also very much about the Jewish experience. I think a way that is what a real pain is. And the Kieran character kind of verbalizes that. I think there are really great stretches of dialogue where you can tell it's just Jesse Eisenberg, like through this Benji character, channeling a lot of frustrations and a lot of emotions about his Jewish identity. And there's a scene in the train where a lot of that comes out, and he says the title of the movie without really saying it, or I guess like the main theme behind the title, where it's just about like what is this idea of wearing your pain, of carrying your pain, because that's something that is very inherent to the Jewish experience, is very consciously like carrying that pain. And when they're on this trip, he feels very conflicted about like being able to do that and enjoy a vacation, right? And like a holiday, and the things that come with, a nice trip on a train through Europe. And there's more layers even on top of that get introduced. So I want people to experience like the full breadth of what this movie has to offer. But there's a lot of details like that really sung with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just so many different things that can be interpreted different ways. Like, I mean, one of the other calls to the title, A Real Pain, is like this feeling of guilt of how do I have the right to be depressed when my grandparents had to like experience the biggest atrocities on earth? I can't, like, I don't deserve to say that I'm experiencing pain because of like what my ancestors had to go through.
Yeah.
And that's this whole other layer that's on here, is like this layer of just immense survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I really, really love this movie.
Well, to shout out the concentration camp scene, I think that is one of the best scenes of any movie I've seen this year, because it's so efficient with the number of shots, the number of setups that we see, and how long Eisenberg chooses to stay on those shots. It's like you're not even aware of where you are or what you're looking at until you're moving on to the next thing. It all feels very quick, and there's a moment where that quickness suddenly stops, and you sit and you hold on this shot of every single character walking past the camera and looking directly into the lens. And that moment has stuck with me so much because of where we're at in that scene, in that moment, what they're looking at when they're looking into the camera, and specifically the casting of these characters, like the faces that we're looking at, and the variation of each person, of each face as they're passing across the camera uncut. You know, this is a tough moment in the world right now, where we're being told that we have to be divided, and that we have to fear each other, and that we have to try to do horrible things to each other to survive. And a little choice like that rings different in a post-election day 2024 world, where it's a very simple shot. It's a very simple setup of just actors just walking across and just looking into the camera, but the entire thematic context around that moment and the weight that is being delivered by the performances, totally wordless, no dialogue. It has really stuck with me. It has really stuck with me because we're all just people, man. Like, why are we doing this to each other? Why do we feel the need to do these horrible things to each other when we're all just here? Like, we're the same. We're all just human.
Yeah.
No matter what shape or color we take, like, we're all the same. And the movie doesn't try to make a point. It's a very subtle thing that it does. And there's a lot of little choices like that. That sequence really, really stuck with me. And then there's like a little 2-second beats that I won't spoil. They're very haunting, very, very haunting right after that. I can't believe it. It's horrifying, honestly.
Yeah, it is. This movie has just some of the most haunting things that you will see. But I kind of go back to it like that. It's something whenever we were talking about Anora too, about like these movies with multitudes, is that this movie is also like absolutely fucking hilarious. Like it also is just, it's Kieran Culkin doing the Kieran Culkin thing. Like it is so funny. There's one moment earlier on that I always think about where he first sees Marsha just like walking by herself, and he's like walking along with Jesse Eisenberg's character, and he's just like, "Oh, what's wrong with that woman? She looks hurt. I'm gonna go help her." And he like runs up to her. He's like, "Hey, why are you walking alone like a fucking loser?" Just to like a stranger saying that, and just like these little moments throughout that are deeply
just
funny.
breaking the ice.
Well, also, again, just coming from this person that everything about this movie just has like this layer of melancholy on it. Like really, really beautiful layer of melancholy that is really like summed up best in the end. The final sequence, which again, we'll have a spoiler discussion at another time, I'm sure. But like the way that this movie ends, I think is pretty gutting. Like it's just everything that is happening in that last scene, I've just been like racking my head around to wonder like what is next for these characters. Right.
Lovely film.
Beautiful.
I think
it's definitely a lock for my top 10. Absolute stone cold lock.
I think it's in mine right now. Yeah, right now it is, but we're about to hit another deluge of catch-up in the coming weeks. I have a list of 70 movies that I'm gonna try to watch. It's just, we can hope. We can hope.
It's okay. We'll do what we can. We're doing our part, damn it. We'll do more 3-hour catch-up episodes to tell the people what to watch and what not to watch.